Ideas, imagination, inspiration, macro world. Here's your host, Ray Scott.
Hi, and thanks for dropping by Macro World. Now, some of you may have thought that today would be part 2 of Macro Roses, and actually that was the plan. And then I got this idea that I wanted to shoot lupines macro style. And since that's a time-sensitive thing, since lupines are actually sprouting now, they're actually growing, I thought, you know something, let's do macro lupines today, and the next video will be Macro Roses Part 2. Now, lupines are coming up, as I mentioned, and although this project can be used with other types of flowers, I thought, you know something, since I'm using lupines, I'll give you the opportunity to use lupines as well. They are coming up in the wild, and they are coming up in gardens right now. Now, the thing with lupines is that they are extremely impressive flowers. They really, really are. When you come across a stand of lupines like the one you're seeing in back of me right now, you stop the car, you get off your bike, whatever, and you want to grab and capture everything because it's so impressive. You want to just get the whole scene in. That's totally acceptable, and it's a great thing to do, and I know that I do it all the time when I come up upon something like that. But you know something? You can really, really get some different looking lupin pictures if you move in really close. Now, in macro photography, the strict word on macro is it has to be life-size or greater. But on this channel, we're calling it macro world, of course, but it could be the close-up world, if you will. So what I'm saying is that sometimes if it's half life-size or even a quarter life-size, that's okay for the purposes of this channel. Now, a lot of you may not have a dedicated macro lens. You may just have something that says it has a macro setting, which brings you maybe to a quarter life-size or half life-size. That's okay. Go ahead and get in close with it and do some macro photography. Okay, macro lupines, let's get started. So here it is, I'm driving along, and wow, right in front of you. So the immediate reaction, as I was saying off the top, is to get the whole thing, and of course nothing wrong with that. All of the beauty is really, really there. You can move in a little bit closer, and it's just an overload, really, of color. And you look at all the different kinds of lupines there are there. It's amazing. But this is a macro tutorial, so the idea is to get in a little bit closer. So here we are, shooting at around f4. That's the aperture, so that you can really concentrate on what's going on the right-hand side, but yet you still have a sense of what's going on in the background. Shallow depth of field, you know there's another lupin there, and that's a way of highlighting one thing, and to keep your eye on one thing is to use a shallow depth of field. Again, now we're separating with a shallow depth of field. This is shot at f2.8, and we're also separating with a difference in color. But off the top of the show, I was talking to you about how while this is macro world, we're not always talking about life size or greater. You can grab close-up images without having an absolute life-size lens. Now, this is not life-size. This is, I would say, around a quarter life-size, something like that. So you can use what you have. Even if you don't have a dedicated macro lens, you can get in close and do interesting things. Now, there's another point, and this is really, really important if you don't have a macro lens, or no, even if you have a macro lens, it just matters for all kinds of photography. Focus is critical. It is absolutely critical. And the closer you get in, the more critical it gets. So if you don't have a macro lens, or even if you do, you really need to focus properly. Now, the nice thing is that, and we'll just go back to this just for a moment. Let's say you have this, and you actually want it to appear closer. If it's focused properly, then you can crop in, and it will appear like it's life-size or whatever. So just be careful. Here, the focus could have been a little bit better, but I was using a shallow depth of field of f2.8, so, I really wanted the background to be out of focus. But you can see those lupins. You get the sense of what's going on in the background, even closer. All right. And this was
this, but cropped, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, if it was really important for you to have even more of the lupin in focus, then what you would have done is you would have used a deeper depth of field like f16 or something like that. I was only using f2.8 here because originally this is what I was looking for. This is just something I'm showing you that you can crop to make it appear even closer, all right? So keep that in mind. Or shoot the top. You know, the lupin hasn't fully opened, and you can see it's kind of interesting at the top of the lupin. Or shoot down a different angle to make the lupin appear it's coming up at you. It kind of has a three-dimensionality to it. And now here's the key. Where do you focus? Because I'm using a shallow depth of field again. And you focus on the top, on the bottom, on the middle. It's totally up to you. It's an artistic license thing. And your depth of field is an artistic license thing. So that's totally up to you as a photographer. I chose to focus on some petals that are just a little bit down from the top. Okay, now we're out of the wild. We're out of those lupins that were on the side of the road, and we're in my own garden at home. So this is kind of what it looks like. There's a couple of lupin plants there. What can we do with that? There you go. Separating it, okay? We were looking at it this way. Separate it and use a shallow depth of field. Separation. Concentration on one thing. You can see on the left another purple lupin, and on the right you can see a hint of a pink one. Shallow depth of field again. Top of the lupin, and now it's different because nothing's really open, and you can see other little things, little spikes coming out, and it's a whole different world when you're using macro photography to show off a flower. You can just see things more clearly, and sometimes even things that you can't see with the naked eye so well. Turn it on its side a little bit, the camera that is, so that it appears to be going on a bit of a diagonal, which always adds a little bit of a dynamic to your photography. Okay, now I'm showing you this one because, again, the back garden, and I have one lupin in focus, and all the rest are out of focus. But there's something that can be done with this that can be really interesting. And that's why I'm showing you this. Now notice that plant right there, out of focus. How about getting down lower and doing this? Now you've got it in focus. That little flower that's barely started its life. And get in on it. And look at that. Look at the magic that creates. Look at the atmosphere and the feeling that creates. And not only the flower, but look at the leaves coming up below it. And they're kind of out of focus. And you have a little bit of blurry pink in the background. And you have that other thing on the left, the other lupin on the left, a little bit out of focus. Wow. It really hones in on what you're trying to show here. Or another way to look at it. All right. Different depth of field, different composition. It's in the middle. I think at this point I prefer this one, but again, artistic, it's up to the person. You can see the leaves a little bit better coming up at the bottom because it is a greater depth of field. Hey, just depends on what you're looking for. Again, a little bit lower the camera just a little bit from that to that, and then to this. All right, and this is the one that I actually settled on because shallow depth of field, I've got it centered. I've got something going on the left. I've got a little bit of something going on the right, and I've got that blob of pink in the background. Depends on what you like. And in the garden, you can even go closer, all right? Even closer. Shallow depth of field. And look for things that are a little bit different, like the way this lupin is curving. And the other leaves are kind of, they almost look like they're pushing it. Okay, so they're on a bit of a diagonal and they're almost pushing it. And you never know what you can find in the garden. All right?
Shooting lupins macro style really gives you an opportunity to show off these beautiful flowers in a completely different way and in a way that you don't see very often. I wish you really good luck with this project, and I'll be interested to see how you make out with it. Let me know. Macro lupins, lots of fun. Until next time, I'm Ray Scott, reminding you to shoot small and think big.